All School Admin Building Committee to order. First item on the agenda is roll call. Diane Allen is here remotely. Kevin Kyra. Here. John Doherty.
Here.
Jesse Fennelly. Jack Holloway.
Here.
Paul Malorani.
Here.
Paul Ruggiero.
Here.
Glenn Brand is here. Dan Pilata, our OPM. And Jeff Hull.
We are recording, right?
Yes, we are.
So I can get a copy of this. I don't have to take notes,
Yes, we can.
because I'm gonna be talking and noting at the same time and stuff.
All right. Next item on the agenda, I sent out the minutes to the August 10th meeting. So everyone had a chance to review them.
Yeah, I think, so it starts out referencing Paul as the acting, but then later on it mentions you being there, so I think there, was that the
Came
meeting?
late.
Was that the- I thought you were down, up in Alaska at that point, weren't you? August 10th?
August 10th? No,
Who's back?
I was here.
Okay.
So that's, that was the person taking the minutes, a copy of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
We'll go with that. So I'll make that correction. Any other edits?
The reference in the, I guess it'd be the third paragraph, it says place on the, will take place on the 17th, I presume that's August 17th?
Yes.
August 17th? Okay.
Just further down, I guess would be 6 down, Glen, is in Glen Road, is just one end. That occurs a few times in here, but, and then, seems to be some question on page 2 of the second paragraph, Mr. Malroney, the question as to whether he asked the question or not, I don't know if you recall, Paul.
That was my question.
And then further down, it starts, the second, Mr. Hooper in that paragraph, on the agenda will be 2 articles for each building. I think it should say 2 articles, one for each building.
Right.
Yeah. A couple paragraphs down from there, Mr. Mulroney starts out, and then Board of Selectmen did not have many concerns or questions, and that is a good thing. I think instead of "and," as is the work that has gone into getting the information out.
What was that?
Should it be that it is a good thing?
What was that one?
It seemed a little awkward the way it was phrased there. Questions in that is a good thing in the work that has gone into getting information out.
It is a good thing?
And it is a good thing, maybe, yeah.
I think it should say as instead of and the. As the work.
Otherwise, just a second to the bottom paragraph, Glenn, again, is just, there's 2 places where it's referenced there, it's just one N.
Okay. 2 ends.
Where was the paragraph about the articles?
It was on the second page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Say 8th paragraph down. Mr. Malorani. Starts with Mr. Malorani.
No, the one we were talking about, the correction, that it was 2 separate articles.
About the articles.
Yes, about the articles.
That's Mr. Hooper,
Oh, okay.
6 down.
Was that on the first?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th paragraph, second page.
Thank you.
Any other corrections? Any other discussion? All right, with the edits,
Make a motion to accept as amended?
motion from John Doherty, seconded by Jack Holloway. Thank you. All right. Oh. Vote to accept the minutes as read, as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Discussion on the construction estimates.
Okay, before you is, I gave you a couple of documents similar to what we did with the senior center. This is a worst-case scenario that we believe. This is the backup detail to the construction estimate with all the little, line items. This final number gets carried over in the yellow block of the project budget. So I wanted you to understand where all that came from. We're basically looking at an ask of $37,305,766. Included in that is the OPM, the designer, the contractor, $1.1 million worth of furniture, $35,000 worth of miscellaneous, $100,000 worth of utility mitigation, $250,000 worth of IT and telephones, $50,000 if you want to do commissioning, and some geotechnical increases and survey increases that will be needed for as-built and verification of substrates.
1.5 in contingency.
And 1.59 in contingency, which represents 5%, a little more than 5%, it's 5.03%.
So the total cost again, Dan, I'm looking at $37,595,766.
So, I'm gonna get to that,
Okay,
right? So, I sent you two, Diane.
yes, yes.
One has a V 1.02 on it, one has a straight budget.
Yeah.
There was a question as to whether the community television, some of their equipment needed to come to the building or not. And it wasn't clear, so I made one budget without WCTV and one budget with WCTV. But I wanted the committee to debate that before we looked at the other budget, because if you guys don't want those funds added to this project, because it's a PEG account or something else, then this would be the final budget.
Okay, so when I see the first one, this last one is $37,305,766.
That's correct.
That's what we have in front of us.
Budget without extra for WCTV.
Correct.
Got it, thank you very much, Dan.
You guys all here?
Yeah, it's very faint. I tried to. Yeah, give it a try. I think I had it at 100%. Is it at 100?
Dan, where's the budget that has WCW?
I have it here, Kevin. I mean, it's similar to this, but it has a V 1.2, and the change is down here under telephony and IT.
Oh, were that trying to say something?
Yeah, of course. I didn't give it out, because if you guys didn't want to even go down the path, I wasn't gonna try confusing people.
But we did leave room for WCTV in the new building, right?
We did, it's a question of whether we need
Yeah, I
to
think
buy
it's the
them the
same.
equipment, or they're bringing their equipment, or whether they would be paying for that out of PEG accounts instead of building
I
accounts.
think we'll have to.
It just wasn't resolved,
Yeah.
and I wanted to make sure that we knew that we had that ability to change the budget if you want to. It's really your choice.
Do we know when that's gonna be resolved?
So this was a discussion that Ken Lord, he's with WCTV. They went out there, they were soliciting bids for material for where they came in, and they actually came in a lot higher, which isn't really shocking considering the environment right now for supplies. So during a discussion, that's where Dan and myself, we're looking at it. What was estimated in there was the original number, that's what we have in front of us. And then the other one is with the increase in material costs that WCTV would need. And to give you an idea, what we're talking about is what WCTV has here currently, and the camera and equipment would be very similar to what we would have in the meeting hall at the town hall,
So,
school admin.
Regardless of which direction you go, all the wiring is already in the base budget, in the base number. So it's a question of the endpoints, and, we made some assumptions that, you're not buying brand-new servers for everything when you've got servers that can be easily picked up and moved over. All your PCs, some of them will be new, some of them won't be. I'm sure you'll make a decision that some of them haven't reached the end of their life and they'll come over. So we don't have brand-new everything for every piece of IT in the building. If you want to go that route, then, version 1.2 would be closer to accurate.
And the expectation would be for our current IT department to bring over their servers, their equipment that they're currently using.
Correct.
So this is to give you an idea of what WCTV was looking at. We don't have to accept it this way. This is what's being presented. This was the increase of the number, so that's why this was given out first. That's probably something we can also discuss in D&D, right?
Yeah.
Design.
Oh, in design development, we'll get down to each individual piece. So, we're at schematic design, so we carry it by the foot. All right?
Do you want to kind of go through this estimate sheet?
I can if you want.
Actually, I've got a couple of questions on it first.
Which one?
Actually, on one of each of them, actually.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
And Dan, I'm not picking on you,
Yep, go ahead.
okay? You're in the first one. The largest one. How was the figure of 450,000 projected?
The amount of time and personnel that'll be needed in the field, there'll be 2 people in the field and 1 person doing project management, partial time.
Okay, okay,
And it's probably a 16-month build,
okay.
okay?
And on the construction documents?
Yep.
How is that figured out?
So, under the construction documents and design development, 25,000 of that, each of those phases is an
Okay.
estimate independent of us
Okay,
that we do. So we have an estimate schematic design from independent from the designer. When we go to DD, we're actually gonna have 2. And
When
then
you-
we sit down and we reconcile them to make sure that we're on target.
okay. When it goes out to bid, are the documents digital?
When it goes out to bid, the documents will be available digitally, or they can get paper form.
Okay, do you charge for paper form?
So the vendor would have to buy the paper form. Most vendors today get them digitally.
Yeah, it's a
The
lot
general
easier.
contractors will buy the paper form ones and the digital ones. The digital ones are generally free.
Okay.
In the old days, we'd have a line here for about $30,000 just for printing. We don't do that anymore. It's all
yeah.
done digitally through
It's a lot easier.
either Bid Docs Online or Project Dog.
Okay. Now, the,
Same with the bidding. The bidding's done online now, too.
yeah, the 31,669,000,
Yep.
how hard of an estimate is that?
It's a very accurate estimate for the documentation that we have,
Okay,
which is a geotech report, the size of the building, and narratives for HVAC systems, electrical systems, plumbing systems, fixture counts.
if this passes at the special town meeting, when would it go out to bid?
So it would probably go out to bid if it passed a special town meeting sometime around September or October
Next year,
of next year.
okay. So costs could conceivably change.
Costs will change, and there's an 8% escalation for inflation in,
Okay.
in this.
Okay,
So
okay,
you'll find a line in there for 7.9%
Okay.
for inflation, which is the current rate.
okay.
That's 2023.
Yes,
You're saying next year.
yes.
Can I, because I'm not as familiar with this, why it would be that much time between special town meeting and when the bid goes out?
Because
Because I don't understand, so.
I'm going to be happy to explain it to you. So, all the pretty pictures that we've done and the scale drawings that we've done have demonstrated that the program that the town has agreed on fits. The building looks somewhat pretty good, everyone likes it, you know, there'll be more little tweaks. To get that to a document set that can be bid publicly, we'll have probably 180 sheets, 24 by 36, about this thick, and 2 spec books about this thick. Every screw, every hinge, every toilet seat, everything gets detailed and documented. And we have to provide 3 vendors for everything in the building, so that there's fair and open competition. That's part of, you know, Chapter 149. All right, does that answer?
Provide those documents for 3 vendors?
Yeah, and the bid documents. And or equal. So every once in a while, we get an or equal, and we have a battle between the architect and the contractor. Is it an equal?
And so part of that timeframe that between the town, special town meeting and the bid process is discussions about the final, so to speak, in terms of the details on the project.
Right. Every room will have its own elevations, so you know what's on all 4 walls. You'll know what the materials are on all 4 walls, what the floor materials are in each floor. All of those kind of things get detailed in DD and design development. And then when we get to construction documents, we literally stop meeting, and we go to work on the engineering documentation that's required to bring this to a public bid. And then we put it out to bid. We'll take the file sub-bids first. The file sub-bids are 16 trades that have been designated by the Inspector General's office that get bid before the generals, and then the generals have to pick one of those contractors in each of those trades, and any other trade is carried by the general contractor. It's a complicated way to build a building. There's no question about it.
And I see also, looking at the square footage and the square footage cost of
Yep.
$681 per square foot on the building. Were you kind of shocked by that price?
Yeah, I think Phil and I both thought it was gonna come in around 620.
Yeah?
Judge, where are you looking, I'm sorry?
Oh, that's on the very first page?
I got you.
Yeah, right on page 1. So when you look at the main construction cost summary, and if you go across construction start, gross floor area, dollar square footage, and then estimated costs. So if you carry that all the way down to the bottom in the bold highlighted numbers, excuse me, that gives you your gross square footage, your floor space,
Where
and
is that again?
Right here.
Right here, Kevin.
Right here.
Kevin.
Two things that, two disclaimers on everything. This is the worst-case scenario. Phil and I, having done multiple projects together, do go through everything, every line item, every unit cost. We've done a cursory review. Unfortunately, Phil had to go to Italy for 2 weeks for a family thing, and he's not here for 2 weeks. We are communicating, but it's 6 hours, then 6 hours later, and then 6 hours. So there is definitely some things that can be adjusted. We've seen nothing that's going to be adjusted up, only adjusted down. We would like to do is present to you, like we did with the senior center, some value engineering options at the next meeting.
Yep.
Let you finalize what you want for value engineering. There's some areas where there's block backup that we think we can do stud backup. There's some areas, some of the square footages, like the building's not 46,485 square feet. It's 43,000 and change. So there's a couple of small errors like that that need to be corrected. And how they affect the MEPs is simple. How it affects some of the other things is not so simple. So we're expecting this to go down, not be as high as it is. But I don't want you to think it's going to jump down so far that you're going to be doing cartwheels. It's not.
And this includes some adjustment for prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage is in here.
Yeah.
So
everything-
PM&C does public bid estimates. They know, file sub-bidding, they know the prevailing wage for the area.
Dan, could you pass me out, or pass out the other sheet that we
Sure.
had? with-
So that, Kevin, you mind sending that that way?
This one actually,
Thanks, Kevin.
if we, that has the WCD.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
when I say worst case, I mean the yellow block.
Okay.
I mean, let's be honest, the yellow block is where all the money is.
On the PM&C document, underneath the line we were just talking about, had some alternates and stuff. Is that, something, so he pays negative 170?
So those are items that he identified, he thought would jump at for some VE items. Phil and I looked at some of them briefly, and all of them need to really be looked at a little more carefully than just throwing a number out there. The one thing that is correct is the quantities in here. So, there is no question that the estimator got everything, that we think he's got everything necessary for schematic design estimate.
The second one is the one with the,
V1,
Correct.
TV stuff.
right, V 1.02 at the top.
Yeah, gotcha.
And the only change is under IT telephony. Blue. All right?
Just one clarification, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding.
Go ahead, Diane.
Here correctly. And I'll look at it, this is the budget without the extras for WCTV.
With everything that's going on in
The
the federal
dock
government.
part at the very beginning,
Yes.
I'm not sure about municipal buildings.
so FF&E is like the furniture and all the other
Just a
things.
short, that's all.
Yeah.
They do get figured in to your bottom line number. However, if they are not included in the other multiple sheet of construction costs, because that is just construction. Is that correct, Dan?
I think I understand what you're saying, Diane. So construction is listed at 31,669,616, which matches the PM&C estimate, okay?
Correct.
So all of these other items, the Johnson Roberts P3 and owner expenses, are added to that to come up with the total of, it's really 38,260,766, but you've already appropriated 955,000, and we've spent, I don't know, 350,000 of the 950. So, we're capturing the excess of the original study that we didn't spend. I mean, we didn't even spend 50% of the study, right? And then we're using that towards construction, so that your actual appropriation's 37,305 without a WCTV and 37,495 with WCTV. Am I clear?
Yep.
Yes, you are. And when
Yes, it is. We would expect that IT, AV, and furniture to be bid out about halfway, when the building's halfway built, so that you get the latest IT, you get the latest furniture designs. You wouldn't want to bid those out early, because you'd be paying for storage somewhere.
How is the cabling going to be installed?
How is the cabling going to be installed? So we've identified.
Is it going to be in a conduit, so we can change it out as technology changes?
Well, the cabling is going to be the latest, probably 6E or 7 cabling.
Okay, but that's 2024.
Correct.
Okay, in 2030, it could be changed entirely. So if it's not in a conduit, we wouldn't have the ability to change it out.
So I don't know the answer as to whether we have that in a conduit or not,
Okay,
in each individual drop.
okay,
You have drop ceilings in most of the
Right, I
buildings,
was
so I
gonna
know
say
that the
cable
horizontal
trays.
runs.
okay, so we'd
Cable
be able to
trays.
change,
There's usually a cable tray that runs down the center.
okay, so we would be able to
hallways.
change out cables then, without a problem.
I mean, that's a DD issue, but I
Okay.
don't see why not.
Okay.
It's accessibility, especially with
Yeah.
the acoustical suspended ceiling, I would
I
think.
just want to make sure that, you know, we're not
Future
locked
growth.
into
Right.
one certain thing, but in the future, as things change, we're able to keep up with the change.
Dan, I have a question on the adults. Is this gonna be similar to our other project where you have them down on the bottom here as deduct, add? So when we get into, we'll just say like the heating system or the HVAC and the mechanical, when we talk, maybe this one may be gas, thermal, or, hydro instead of VRF,
Right,
something.
so he's showing some options there. In the base is air handlers, induction units, which is gonna have some sort of a boiler.
Right,
Then there's an option for VRF in lieu of option 1, which is a savings of 170,000. And then there's an option to add geothermal wells in the parking lot for $1,125,000. And all of those items are things we generally walk through in DD as we're going through it, because they have to do an energy model, and we can't really, you can't do a geothermal energy model without drilling a well, and there's a lot of little odds and ends that go with it. It's normally done during DD, not in SD.
okay.
So what they're telling you is, these are basic cost increases and decreases, should in DD you choose to go down that path.
Okay.
All right?
And last one, that pulverize and mill existing asphalt in lieu of replace with new. What will they do, recycle the asphalt that's there?
So that's one of the items Phil and I are having a discussion with him, because we think he's got an error in that, so it doesn't make sense. Clearly pulverizing it and using it as base saves money.
Space.
As base saves money.
Okay.
But the paving is 600,000, so you're not gonna get a credit for 600,000. So we're going through to see where the bust is on that. That's why I need the 2 weeks to present you a presentation with the VE list on it, like we did with the senior center.
Dan, this is going to also be tied into sewer, is that correct? This
Ye-
building?
Yes,
George, will the natural gas there?
There's gas right out in front of St. Thomas. It goes right down Adam Street. That's where we connected the new high school to.
Okay,
The sewer line that goes to the high school is a forced main, so they would probably have to do something similar.
and the town would pick up that cost, right?
Well, would that be part of construction costs?
probably to the center of the street. So,
Town would have to look at that.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm not sure, when that was designed for the high school,
Yeah, we will
I
not
don't
be
know
able
that-
to, we will not be able to tie into that one.
No.
But that goes down Church Street. I don't know what goes down Middlesex Ave. I'd have to look at that.
yeah, I'm not sure we have
Trying to think of
sewer
which,
in that area.
There's no sewer in this section.
depends on how far it comes down.
Actually, I think we're on sewage at 5
I-
Middlesex.
Right, I
Yeah.
believe you are, so
Yeah.
coming down, I believe it may come as far as St. Thomas,
Yeah, I
but
think it does.
don't quote me on
Yeah,
that,
it
you know?
does.
So we could just pick it up to there.
Mark, for a cost, you can bring it down to your house.
Sure you want a sewer bill?
Yeah, exactly.
I got excited when it went up to the library.
All those kids.
They're on their way out.
All right, so, I mean, you got this estimate pretty quick. I was expecting this to be a little bit further out, so you haven't had a chance to really.
We haven't, Phil and I, like I said, go through these with a fine tooth comb. We went through this with enough confidence to at least present a budget, but we want to massage it.
All right.
And we want to present you with some options, just like we did with the senior center. We presented 14 options to the senior center building committee. They took 3.
And when Phil presents this, we'll see some of these options. We'll have a presentation kind of laid out. So-
Well, Phil won't be here at our next meeting unless it's 3 weeks from today instead of 2 weeks from today. If you make it 3 weeks from today, Phil will be here.
Well, I don't want to go too far out.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
I can assure you that between the staff at Johnson & Roberts, we can put together something.
Okay.
All right? I wish it was 5 years ago.
Well, yeah, I see that number, I see the numbers going up on everything, unfortunately.
The last 3 MSBA school projects came in pretty high.
I do want to just discuss with the committee here this, the difference with WCTV. Obviously, they need the additional equipment for monitoring our meetings and a few other things. Do we want to include the additional cost for WCTV well right now, or stick with the original estimate that came in?
Can we
So the-
split it?
What's that?
Can we split it with WCTV?
Well, my thought was to, I don't know where WCTV would get their funds from. I know that Verizon and Comcast provide them, and I'm really not up on their, what they get. I think we just lost.
Fell off his chair.
That's all good.
Sorry
But,
about that.
Again, we also have a contingency built in here. We can discuss it with them. So what are they bringing over for equipment? So, I mean, I'm almost of the mindset to go with the original estimate that we have budgeted here. We start to make some cuts. We find ways to cover these costs. Maybe we can. But,
I thought, do we know if WCTV, the costs that they are anticipating for these items squares with what you're including here? I thought that there was an email exchange this afternoon that suggested the WCTV costs were higher.
these here are endpoints that dampen, and what I mean by that is that's the cabling and everything goes to a certain point.
Right,
Come to-
right.
What WCTV provides is, looking for is these cameras and a few other things. That's not included in this estimate.
Right.
But they were budgeting in their number, a certain amount, and it went up. And I had a meeting today that we were discussing it with the director. Yeah, higher.
How much higher?
Well, it's the difference here. I believe it was almost $200,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is worth having a conversation about having WCTV pick up a good portion of that cost.
That was kind of my thought, so I wanted it put together so you could see it.
Right.
So that would be, go with the original estimate, and then see what we can do in VE as far as savings, talk to them about what they can provide, what they're going to bring over with them and install. and we have a contingency.
When we do go to DD, we will be meeting with WCTV to lay out the rooms.
Yeah.
You know, clearly this room was not built for TV. You guys have added it. And
Right.
you've mounted on the walls, and so that's not the way this will be in the new, it'll all be built in. And, you know, there's a control room between the two meeting rooms, the two meeting rooms wide, the control room. All that wiring is in our budget.
Okay.
All right, what's not in our budget is what, you know, we don't know what kind of a control panel they use or what kind of cameras they use. Usually those endpoints get bought at the very end with the latest technology, so you have the state-of-the-art technology, otherwise it's out of date the day you put it in. So we usually do the wiring and we lay out the rooms with the end users. Same with IT. You know, IT's briefly looked at the plans and said, I need a room here, a room here. He knows in his mind he needs a head end and a LAN room and a LAN room, and, you know, they're gonna be connected by conduit, because there'll be a fiber connection between them. So we'll have all that done, but the actual layout of the room, we'll be meeting with IT. We'll be meeting with the school department to make sure that the chairs and the tables are in the exact spots, and the data jacks and the wall jacks are in the right spot. So all those little tiny details of why it takes from November to get to a bid, because everything has to be documented on the drawings.
And each one of those jacks is the endpoint.
Yeah, each one of the jacks would be an endpoint. So we turn over a tested system that has, you know, no more dB loss than allowed by the standards of whatever their standard is, you know. There's usually an ASI standard that you can only lose so many dBs from one point to another point, because then it starts affecting the data. So they'll get it, each one of them gets tested and labeled so that when they come in, they just do the little patch panel thing, and they go to the other end and plug in, and it works. They shouldn't lose sleep over it.
Without, oh,
How was it handled with the high school? 'Cause the high school has a immediate room with full control and.
pretty much the same way when we went to, so, right, they go in, oh, as far as WCTV?
WCTV's at the high school.
Yeah,
They have a control room.
right.
Where their meetings are held, they have, I mean, they're in the back room and they're doing everything.
Right.
So when the high school was built, was that part of the cost, or was it not, and then it was added
I
on?
think it was part of design development. I know the control booth for the auditorium was all kind of laid out, and they have the capability of plugging into the system there. I'd have to look at what was provided. I thought WCTV, Jeff, I don't know if you were around for this at the time, came up with an amount of money so that they brought their equipment in for the large learning room that's there, so off to the side. I believe they provided that. Again,
Well,
don't,
that's something I need to investigate, because if they did provide some funding source,
right.
you know, I would hope that we would
They could do it again?
do the same thing,
Yeah.
you know. But we certainly want them to be fully functional.
Right, because they do provide a
You know, if
service.
we're gonna build new, you know, I want it to.
You want to look good on TV, right? No, I agree with you 100%. So again, that'll come through a lot of D&D.
In schools, usually, you know, especially if you have a program for film and editing technology, MSBA will participate. So sometimes that's included in. But a lot of times, the FF&E portion of it is where the equipment comes, so that gets bid later. So all the wiring will get done in the school, make sure it's ready and it's designed right. Similar, almost similar to the way we're doing this. I mean, if we bought the technology would be bought through the electrical contractor, and the electrical contractor would be giving it to the file sub-bid technology contractor, and he'd be marking it up, because he'd be getting it from a third vendor, and we'd just have 3 markups. It's just not worth it.
Plus, like you said, technology, the way it advances so quick, you buy it
Changes.
now, by the time the building opens, you know, it's antiquated. Paul, did you have
Is
a?
it- Yeah, I mean, just along that vein, in terms of funding sources, is it even a consideration to approach Verizon and Comcast? I mean, I don't know where we are with their contracts and their 10-year contracts.
Well, so the Verizon contract has actually been negotiated. slated to be brought to the Board of Selectmen, not at this next meeting, but I think the following meeting. They first started out with a 15-year, which you can do per the law for the first license. And then typically it's 10 years after that. In this case, because of the way, the whole cable industry is moving and everyone's getting Hulu and all these other things, it's only a 5-year contract that they're agreeing to. So it's, and there's money in there, and I don't recall off the top of my head what the amount is, but with those licenses, we always seek money for essentially capital expenses for WCTV. So there is an amount that's paid each year for those 5 years that would allow WCTV to buy new cameras or whatever it might be that they need.
We could ask Verizon for $190,000, we'll call it Verizon Studio.
That's what I'm saying, naming rights or something like that.
Well, and not to jump on it, but I think it's a good idea, right? And you, Jeff, you mentioned streaming services and Hulu and things, and I'd like to see if there's a way for us to, even offset part of the cost for WCTV. I mean, I spent a few years on the board of directors there as well, and knowing how many people are canceling their cable bills, their revenues are going down.
Right.
And so, if we get a couple of years out and we're asking them to essentially stock a control room to broadcast our meetings, that's a big amount of money to ask, so.
Well, the
I'm not
good news
suggesting we cover the whole cost, but to your point, anything we could do and explore, I think is worthwhile.
The good news is we don't have to decide tonight.
Yeah.
Because
Fair
we're gonna
point.
give you a bunch of VE items, and we can, you guys can chew on it for 2 weeks. And we'll come back in 2 weeks with a whole bunch of things that we try to help offset some money that maybe you can find a way to bring it back.
So wouldn't we want to start with the higher number then, if we're going to, that includes the WCTV numbers, if we're going to hopefully value engineer that down and whatever else versus adding it? It's 190 delta right now. So say we get it down, we can get rid of 100,000 of it, as an example. We're either adding back 90 or taking out 100. I'm just wondering, at least we have the money in there.
Entirely up to you which
Yeah,
budget you want me to start with.
Right, we're gonna be doing the VE to start making the cutout, but once we start going through, so, we might be able to replace that cost if we go with the lower number. If we start high, you're already padding not padding it, but you're going with the larger number.
Looking, hey, we did better work, we cut out 190,000 versus we added 100,000. That's
Yeah.
all.
I have no problem with going with the original one and asking WCTV what they will be able to provide.
That's the same approach as at the high school.
Correct.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we do that, But, again, that's for the committee, so you could see what was going on.
And your thinking is that contingency would cover it if you want the original one.
We'll see what we go through as far as VE too, But let's see what the WCTV can come up with also.
I did want to at least show you,
No, that's
how
good.
quickly we can adjust. If we have to adjust, we can adjust. We're not meeting, we're not having a hearing on the
Right.
warrant articles until October 13th, and we want to get the number right. We don't even like giving out the number until the number's right, but, we're trying to show you where we are approximately. And at the end of 2 weeks, I think, just like with the senior center 2 weeks ago, we'll be at that same spot where we'll have a final number and we can defend the final number at town meeting.
And also, I know we did a lot of the schematic design, and we went through a lot of that information, which was great, but I was approached afterwards from the clerk, and another good idea that I don't recall that we had on there was night drop boxes, especially where this will be for voting. So maybe 2 of them, one for taxes and or additional information, school department, and then one for voting, so it's totally
So
separate.
if you look in the budget, there's a line item called design contingency.
Yeah,
And the design contingency at schematic design varies by project and varies by designer, and is generally 10% to 15%. We went with 12.5%, which is straight down the middle, just for the purposes of things like this. So what happens with design contingency is when we do our next estimate, which will be at the end of DD, we will have added in two, fire-rated drop boxes.
right.
And, they're not cheap, they're not exorbitantly expensive, but that little teeny sliver comes out of that 12.5%.
Right.
The extra 4 drops that we didn't really know we needed for WCTV that we learned in DD comes out of that little 12.5%. So that's why you see some numbers in here that are generic. So we have a 5% construction contingency, we have a 12.5% design contingency, and that number will slowly shrink with each estimate, because the estimators will become more accurate, because the documents are gonna get thicker and thicker and thicker, and we'll have more to work with. And then, we have that escalation, and that escalation number just stays there until bid day, and we'll be following that as we're going along. But we can never go over the appropriation. Once we get the appropriation, we will have to stick with the appropriation, including contingencies and everything else. Any other questions? I gave you a lot to digest.
Yeah,
I just have one comment, and you tell me if I'm out of line, but the one thing that I've been wrestling with throughout the recent design exercises that we've been doing is the hip roof versus the mansard at the top of the building. And I'm wondering if it's even feasible to consider that as some kind of a value engineering option, or is it just too much of a integral part of the building design?
Well, I think Phil was pushing for the hip roof to bury a lot of the utilities that you'll see when you're on the green or across the green. You won't see them when you're up next to the building.
Yep.
That he thinks you'll see with the mansard, because the mansard will end up being pretty tall to cover
that's
that
exactly
stuff.
what he stated.
Yeah.
So a lot
I
of
think
that-
that's exactly what he stated, so.
That's exactly.
I think we crossed that, but when we get to DD, we can relook at it.
Yeah, that's all.
So,
So
yeah,
much-
I mean,
Can we revisit
we
that?
can revisit that.
Coming down
you
from
know-
School Street up on the hill, you'd be able to see, because you're only 2 stories on that, so the building doesn't appear so high. So you would, if you had a lot of that on the roof, you would see nothing but mechanical. Plus, it serves as a sound attenuator, so if you have a mansard there, it's reflecting noise back. So there's a few things you want to consider.
And if you remember too, I mean, we looked at a whole bunch of facades that had panels on them.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think it was Selectman Kyra that asked that the back of the building be masonry. And you all agreed to it. We priced in masonry. Now, we haven't really designed the masonry in the back. That detail will get done in DD. Is there a corbel? Is there a stripe? Is there a this or a that? It makes a big difference to the building.
Right.
And those type of decisions get made at DD.
Question for you. We spoke about it very briefly in one of our earlier meetings. Power stations for EVs.
What we'll do with power stations
Yeah.
is we usually run a conduit out and put a pad in,
Okay,
because usually you get a Green Communities grant for those, or some
Okay.
sort of a grant from EOEA.
okay.
So that's usually how we handle those.
Because there are 2 different types, right? One for Tesla and one for everyone else?
Yeah, they have different
I
classes.
want the money.
Practice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have, it's like 220 volt, as opposed to 480 volt, higher voltage, faster charging, so.
I'm guessing by the time we get there, there'll be a universal.
Really?
They do.
Okay,
That you can switch a knob and charge one way or the other.
okay,
The nozzle won't fit if you.
Right now, it's the connector.
Yeah.
I mean, Tesla
Yeah.
has their own,
yeah,
like the ones that we have out here, they're universal, so they fit everyone, so.
okay.
But we usually run a conduit out for a double.
Yep,
And you guys will tell us how many you think you want.
So, in 2 weeks, you'll be able to have, numbers?
We'll have some VEs on this. We'll give you an updated budget. It'll be V1.03. And we'll not change it if nothing changes. If we've got some changes, we'll provide an updated budget.
We won't, unless there's something else we're gonna cover on the 21st, right? Okay, we'll talk about that after it's upcoming, so.
Just don't, the school department can't be there first. The school-
That can be a VE item. We'll get rid of the school department. They could go to the bazaar.
Okay,
Can you, what, you're gonna talk about Jake, I was gonna say, can you-
yeah, we'll talk, when we get further on down in the agenda, we'll talk about the rest of that. Next steps, discussion, so. Discussion on borings.
So the geotech's done. The report is due 4 days ago. The estimator, the structural engineer, and the designer and the geotech have talked. So they have the data for the borings in here. But the borings and the actual report's not coming out for another day or two. We had some back and forth. Between the engineer on the test pits and the borings, which were done by the geotech company. So those two have to marry, and they were working on that to get the report out. All right?
And that'll tell, I'm anticipating some ledge in the area, obviously.
There is some ledge in the rear of the building. We carried 1,000 yards of removal.
Yeah.
It's in the budget, on page 15.
Okay.
Okay?
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
Was there any borings that would require the building to be moved from its current location?
No.
Thank you.
And we'll see a report anyways.
Right.
Any questions on it? All right. Next steps and discussion on public outreach. So let's talk about next meetings anyway. So you are shifting your 24th meeting to the 21st, correct?
14th to 24th, but yes. Yeah, we were supposed to meet next week, and then we moved it to the preceding week, so 21st.
21st? So if we don't meet on the 21st, that'll give you time to do the review of the budget and go through everything and,
I mean, we'd be ready for the 21st, but
no.
we'd have Phil here on the 28th.
But we won't have Jeff here, though.
Well, I'll talk to you when I get back.
Okay, all right. So we, yeah, I think it'll be the 28th, because the next one was,
Is it the 28th was originally the senior center, but I think we're at a point on the senior center where
right.
it's not critical that we meet on the
We
28th,
don't
right?
need to meet on the senior center, really,
Right, so maybe,
just to schedule outreach,
Right,
and that's being done internally.
right.
is everybody available for the 28th? I think that would work.
Yep.
Well, Dan, we expect you here, so.
Expect me here? Phil's gonna be here, he's gonna cover for me.
Okay.
Just in from the
So
information.
the 28th is the next town hall, right?
Correct. I'll let the,
So not the 21st, move that meeting to the 28th.
correct. Is everybody clear on that? We will not meet on the 21st?
Delete it and then add. I always delete and add, I haven't been able to figure out how to move a meeting.
Because I got the good ones.
Oh, you got the good phone?
And we're back.
Nothing but their best.
Okay.
The best phone, best microphone.
Right, so
2 weeks after this.
we're going to be
You on?
going into FinCom meetings and then everything else at that point. And then a town meeting where this will be approved, that special town meeting.
I tell you, I feel like I got done early.
November 19th. So, and then we go into construction.
All right,
Any discussion on public outreach?
well, I mean, the only discussion that I have on public outreach is that I did, you know, I met with, television and,
Yeah, maybe.
television, Jeff, yourself, and the schools today, just to go over, you know, brainstorm, and this has been our second meeting to try and get everything ironed out that you guys want to get done. I'm suspecting within a week we'll have a plan of all the action items we're gonna take.
Some of the ideas, and again, with the help of WCTV, I was talking with Sam Perkins. They're looking for some information from our OPM and designers so they can put a professional programming video. So they're gonna have that out there, it'll be looping. We'll be going to looking at the school administration building and the town hall for deficiencies, improvements, what we have currently. So that will constantly be playing. We'll have some links. I've been working with Jeff. He's going to get something out there on his note that he puts out, town topics. So.
We did, you know, we did do 2 water bills. So, I mean, unless you don't pay a water bill, chances of not knowing something's coming are pretty slim.
Well, it's getting it out there.
George, I just have one comment. I want to really direct this to Jeff, too. The other night when I was playing pickleball, I had a couple of people come up to me and say, well, what is going to happen with this building? And they were pointing to the existing town hall. And they also asked what would be happening to the existing senior center. So I think, Jeff, that you have to have some information available, because I think that's going to be a question that is going to be asked on town meeting floor. I happen to be looking in at the website on Tewksbury, and I noticed that Tewksbury, with one of their schools that they have vacant, they established a reuse committee. And that may be an option
Right,
to be discussed, to be used down the line.
yeah.
But I do believe that that will be a question.
Right.
Right, I wouldn't anticipate anything happening immediately with either of those buildings, that, you know, we would convene some kind of a committee to evaluate, you know, what the best options for the Swain, I'm sorry, the Bazell, and the town hall.
And also included in that would be the Roman house, so, so again, yeah,
Right.
you don't want to make, that we plan to use for this, this, and this, for those 3 buildings. Once the new town hall and the new senior center are built and occupied, then we can be determined what we're going, the next step in use for those buildings will be.
Should the decision on the Bazell School coming down and the Roman House coming down, that's not part of this construction money, is it?
No.
No.
It's not our purview. It's
No, but
it's a
we
town building, so.
We could leverage some vision
Right.
for these sites.
In the master plan, they did have the demo of some of the buildings, but that's not what this group, committee is set forth with.
I think we also talked about the what-ifs too,
Right.
if not
Yeah.
voted,
Yeah.
Right.
and to come up with a list of items that the town hall needs to have done, people are not aware of.
Phil and I are going to put together a budget for replacement, you know.
Both the town hall and the school admin, so,
School admin's a little easier than town hall. Town hall,
Right.
you're gonna be doing some sort of an ad reno to create space, but, you know, we know what windows cost, we know what ripping out all of the steam lines costs and putting in fresh air, we know what all those cost. And we plan on putting that together so that we're ready at town meeting and when that question's asked.
Right.
So that was on the list that we talked about with the committee.
Dan, would that also include an addition to bring in the various departments of the school administration? And where
No.
they are? No?
Replacing the school administration, I mean, if you're doing that, you're talking about the building that.
I know, that's why.
That's
That's
what
why.
we're doing. I mean,
Yeah, because,
I think the voters are smart, and they're gonna wanna know, what it would cost to bring this building up to code. And I think when they see what it costs to bring this building up to code, I think it'll be an easier decision for them.
yeah.
You guys simply just have to be replaced. I mean, the school department has to be replaced. They're in 4 different locations.
Yeah.
The only solution to that is to bring them to one location, and there is no location. So, we'll coordinate numbers to that, we'll review them with you guys, you can tell us whether you like them or don't like them, and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
It will probably be something less than what we're proposing, but it's not gonna be so much less than you think.
Yeah, that's, it's still a Band-Aid.
You're still constructing a new building for the school department, even if you think about repurposing the Bazell. If the senior center does pass and this does
But it also
not,
doesn't give you the amenities that the new building would,
correct.
you know, with the meeting rooms and
And you're
the auditorium and everything
consolidating,
else.
you have to totally, yeah, you,
Yeah, I mean, if the senior center is not viable for the seniors, then why would we think it's viable for the school administration?
correct.
I mean, it should come down, right? It's deemed to be
Right, so
not usable.
back
right?
to the what if, you know, that somebody's gonna ask the question, right? I agree with you 100% on that. You would have to, I mean, they would be where they are currently, and you would have to do something with that. How much would it cost? It just, it doesn't work. But the questions,
But we need to be prepared for that too,
Yeah.
because I can see a voter at town meeting proposing the school department in the Bazell, we'll pass the senior center, we won't pass the town hall, and move them over there, so we need to be prepared to answer that. Intelligent.
But even if you completely renovated the Bazell and made it to code, which I don't even know that you can with the foundation you have.
no, it's a fieldstone
It's a
foundation.
fieldstone foundation, you're not gonna pass seismic codes with that. So, I mean, even if we could, it's still too small.
Have a slide ready.
Well, what I'm telling you is that we're working on all of those scenarios,
Yeah.
what-if scenarios. Phil and I have listened, and we're working on them. They're not simple, back-of-the-envelope things. They have to have detail to them and be defendable, because you're gonna have someone ask that question and be pointed about it. We wanna be able to be pointed with the answer,
Exactly.
all right?
Right, okay. All right, so everybody's clear on the 21st, there is no meeting. Next item, public comments, I don't see any.
Where's George?
Yeah, what happened?
Is George there?
George there for
Is George there, Diane?
No comment.
All right. Okay,
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn. John,
Thank
do
you,
I have a
everyone.
second?